What was I talking about? Oh yeah, 13-2. Yeah, it's fun. That's really it. I'm having a blast playing it. I don't care what you guys say. I think it's a fun game. It's entertaining. Story is interesting in the fact that all these little things are happening that I'm like, what is it building up to? They're really foreshadowing lots of stuff, I can tell, but I have no idea what it is, what they're doing, or what the story is. I kind of know the ending, not all of it, but I know something about it has to do with the actual time travel aspect of the game. I don't know if anybody dies or what happens, but I do know that it has something to do with the time travel and going through time and space. And I guess to some people it was a slap in the face that were fans of the Final Fantasy franchise somehow, and others they're like, whoa, amazing, and others were like, I wonder where they're gonna go from here. And then Lightning Returns comes out, and it looks like it has nothing to do with the apparent ending to 13-2. Seriously, it looks like it has nothing to do with it. I mean, yeah, you see Noel in the trailers and a girl that looks like Sarah, but I can tell isn't her. Like a dark version where she has like some sort of like cobweb lace thing going on her shoulder, and it's weird. Her voice is really different. I don't know if that has anything to do with 13-2. I'm guessing it does. But considering Lightning, I guess, is like a goddess now, more or less. She's like a savior, like Jesus. I'm guessing that's like a thing. Yeah, what is that noise? That turtle is still there. I love the turtle. I love the turtle. Right. Like, I don't know. 13 Lightning Returns looks really cool though. Like it's one person. It's like real time-ish and stuff. It looks pretty awesome. The graphics look amazing. Like 13-2 doesn't look as good in some ways as 13 does, but in other ways it does look better. 13-2, from what I've seen so far, feels a little rushed, I guess. Not rushed, but graphics-wise, it's up there. But there are little things here that you can here and there that you can tell they didn't spend as much time on, or at least they didn't like make as high quality looking. It's hard to explain, but that's what I feel. I mean, the effects are still amazing. The frame rate is still great. What is that? It's a boss battle. And there aren't as many. I know for a fact there are not as many tunnel armor. Oh. Don't worry, I'll draw its magic with my runic blade. Wink wink nudge nudge. An air knife. But yeah, like 13 looked amazing. And oh, the reason it took like 3 discs on the Xbox 360 is because it had so many FMV sequences and because the graphics took so much. But yeah. That's really about it. Like 13-2, it just looks a little different is the best way I can describe it. As far as what its graphics look like. The cutscenes still look amazing. Facial animation is perfect, of course, because they brilliantly lip sync everything so well. Like, really, these guys do not get enough credit for their lip syncing. Seriously, they don't. Like, people are like, oh, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls. Beyond Two Souls looks amazing, and Heavy Rain looks amazing. I don't have a PS3, so, yeah. But, they don't get enough credit for, like, just the brilliant graphics they have. It looks up. It looks fantastic. Um, but yeah, I think 13.2, they had to compress into one disc, and they're like, yeah, we should just, you know, work on the story and the gameplay more and the open-endedness rather than just like, you know, FMVs and graphics. So it looks a little worse, I guess you could call it, but it still looks really good. And 13 Lightning Returns is supposed to be only on one disc too. And from what I've heard, it's gonna be like a 20-hour game maybe. Like, I heard that if you can speed through it in like 6 hours, if you really wanted to. Don't go back. There's a spring or whatever. And if you really tried, you you can do as many side quests as possible and stuff, and there's a lot of replayability because of multiple endings. I guess like what 13.2 has multiple endings, but 13s are actually affected by the first time you play, other than 13.2 where you play through once, you get the actual ending, and then you can replay it and get alternate endings depending on certain situations that happen and requirements that are supposed to be met and little things that are unlocked afterward and items or some sort of thing like that, or choices that you make. Yeah, but Lightning Returns seems kind of like what 13 essentially was in its own sense. Experimental. That's what people forget. 13 was in development for a long time. It was more or less an experiment with the next generation to see what they could pull off, what they could do, and they eventually went with what they had. And what they had was 13. What dire fate has befallen Elwyn, who leapt from the raft after the fight with Ultros? And people don't forget that the game like switched like people in development and things like that. It was kind of weird. It didn't go so smoothly the whole way through. Which is why it took them a while, and there were so many concepts they wanted to do, and they stuck with the one they had, and they went with it. Whether that's good or bad depends on your opinion on the games. But the fact is, people, Square Enix, whether you like them now or not for the Final Fantasy series, you cannot at least give them some sort of credit for not trying something new every single game. Like, people harp on the Battlefield series, and Gears of War now is people are getting kind of about it, and Call of Duty and Halo, that everything's starting to be similar. Every single installment, but with slight changes, maybe a little graphical overhaul, maybe a little bit of this, a little bit of that sprinkled in to make it better, I guess. But nothing like super, big improvements. Final Fantasy franchise, they have to do everything from the bottom up. Every single time. Unless it's a sequel. Even then, if it's a sequel, they have to sequelize it. And even then, it's not the same. And I just applaud them for that, for changing every single game. If you play Final Fantasy 1, 2 is completely different from 1 in leveling up and things. There's no levels in 2. It's kind of like in Fallout, the Fallout series, in Oblivion and the Elder Scrolls. If you use something, you'll get better at it. If you use swords, you'll get better using swords. If you use magic, you'll get better using magic. And you have to balance your party that way, by not just making powerhouses. Like in 6, 7, and 8, and even 9, you can overlevel your characters because of what they can learn, and what you can do with them, what you can make them learn. You could do that in 2 as well, but it was a little trickier because if a character started out with a bow and arrow and you have to use a bow and arrow, guess what? They get better using a bow and arrow. They're good by using a bow and arrow. By the time you get more weapons, if you need to get more weapons, they're good at using bow and arrow, so you might as well use a bow and arrow. That's the way I see it. If you can balance your party, or you can make them uber powerful. Problem with making them overpowered with certain abilities, that's usually comes late in the game where you have to grind, and that takes forever. But the payoff, oh, making them super powerful, oh cool, that's awesome and stuff. But like either way make them white mage and be good at like soaking up hits. Oh, the worst part is if your kid hit a lot, but their defense will go up, their health will increase, basically, and they'll endure more, but the other characters won't because they're weaker to that. It's cool. It's a cool system, very experimental and stuff, but not really good. But in a sense, 3 is different. 3 add jobs. 4 was different. This is different. They're all different, and that's just what I applaud them for. I applaud them for doing something new every single main game. Even the spin-offs are slightly different every single time. They try something new. They do different concepts, whether they work or they don't. It all depends on how people react to it and how if it does work or not, and what works and what doesn't. And at least they're trying. At least they're trying to be innovative and, do new things. It's just, yeah. I'm still with the Final Fantasy series. I still think it's awesome. I don't care what anybody says. There's a guy, Noah Antweiler, on the internet, really popular. And he's called the Spoony One, and his website is thespoonyexperiment.com. SPONY, I think, for Spoony. And he reviews Final Fantasy games. That's his big thing. Doma Castle. And he's reviewed Final Fantasy 8, 10, 10-2, and 13, but he's not done with 13 yet. He's like 4 parts in, and he goes through the game's storylines. Like, he reviews them, and he'll go through the game's mechanics and graphics and things like that, but he'll go through the game's storyline as he's doing that, which is really cool. It has a really nice reviewing style. I love it. But it takes him forever to review games because of that. He doesn't just do like a 15-minute, hey, this is my thoughts on the game. No, he goes through everything that he possibly can. Oh, cool. But yeah, like, you know what I mean, guys? People like, he supposedly hates those games that I just mentioned, 8, 10, 10-2, and 13, because some of them have dumb storylines and dumb characters and things that just don't make sense. And from his point of view, I can see that. But when you look at it, when I played through those games, I didn't really find those as problems, I didn't see those. Although the problem with Spoony, which is the criticisms among his haters, or his non-fans, I guess, is that he nitpicks. He loves to spend 5-10 minutes on something as insignificant as a character's clothing. I'm not kidding. Five years? Oh, okay. Anyway, but yeah, I still love like 10, even though I what was I saying? Oh, even though he brings up some points and he makes it funny, I still love the games, and I'm always going to love Final Fantasy because I grew up with Final Fantasy. It was my RPG. People say that their first RPGs nowadays are the Elder Scrolls series, Bethesda games, Fallout series, World of Warcraft. Me, it was Final Fantasy and Pokemon. Those were the RPGs I grew up with. Those were the games I grew up with. My first handheld game was Pokemon Crystal on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. my first real game that I got was the Final Fantasy Anthology. I think it was called. I had I think 5, 6, and 1 and 2, or 4. I can't remember. I think it only had 5 and 6, but I'm not sure. And then I had Final Fantasy 8 as well, which is really awesome. And I played those to death. Then I got 10, which I thought was it was so cool when I got a PS2 and stuff. But yeah. And also, people will go and say bad things about Call of Duty, how it doesn't innovate any game and it's always the same. It looks the same, but it is different. Every game is different, and they do try new things. My friend, he hates the new Call of Duty. He hates Black Ops 2. He's like, I'm never buying Call of Duty again because of how they ripped me off with their prices. Because I got collector's edition, I got ripped off, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, just get over it. You made a bad purchase. Everyone makes bad purchases. You can't dwell on a decision you consciously made, and you made a gamble saying, I'm going to throw up like $150 on a game, and I think it's going to be good. And then when expectation does not meet reality, he goes and he hates it. He hasn't even completed the campaign because he's so bitter about it. Like, really, come on. But, yeah. I mean, I still like Call of Duty. I play them for the campaigns. I've always played them for the campaigns since the first one on the PC. Unlike most people whose first game was Modern Warfare or Black Ops, mine was the very first one, people. I played Medal of Honor on the PS1, okay? That was my first-person shooter. That was when things were so different. But yeah, I don't think I have to go this way. To the east, yeah. And I don't know, I just like talking about games and stuff. Stray cat. And yeah, I love the Final Fantasy series. I actually cannot get into Oblivion and Fallout. I've played Fallout 3, I've tried Oblivion. I kind of got into Oblivion. That dog. Did you see the dog? Anyway, wow. I got into Oblivion kind of, and I played it for like 15 hours, I think, maybe 10, and I got nothing done really. I BS'd the whole time. I did a few side missions in this one town, and I was like, wow. And I did like a couple actual story missions that I thought were side missions, but were actually story-related missions. And then the game started crashing on me over and over and over for like a week and a half. It would just crash and burn. I'd be like, ugh, just stop. And I put it down because I was like, I can't take this. I can't take this crashing. I mean, I'm used to saving all the time. If you look down the corner, I'm constantly saving. I'm a save-aholic, really. I'm overly cautious when it comes to progress, and that just annoyed me. In Fallout 3, I couldn't really get into it. The story didn't grab me. Characters were bland. I wasn't enticed to really explore because it all kind of just looked to me. There was no incentive for me to go out and find things. Really, there wasn't. I don't know why. Maybe it was the gameplay, maybe it was the graphics, maybe it was the animation I didn't like. There's something about their games I don't like. Even Skyrim, where my friend is like, I've poured 400 hours in this game, it's the best game ever. And I'm like, cool. That's good for you. I don't think I've spent that much time in a game, ever. I'm not sure though, I can't say whether or not I have. I don't know where I'm going, by the way. But like, to say it's the best game ever, even by any standard, is debatable. People are like, oh, it's perfect. No, it's not. I mean, the story is nothing special. I mean, it's kind of a cool concept, sure. Dragons, whoop-de-doo. I mean, maybe I'm just sounding bitter and kind of because I can't get into it. Maybe I'm mad at myself because I can't get into the phenomenon that are the Elder Scrolls games and Bethesda's works. Because my friends are like, you call yourself an RPG lover, but you don't like Fallout and Oblivion. You're right. I don't. Because I just don't like the gameplay. To me, it's boring. I don't find any magic or wonder or mysticism in exploring these worlds because to me they're not what fantasy is to me and what sci-fi is to me. I mean, I love dystopian futures as much as the next guy and barren fantasy lands and such, but like to say it's like when people say they're horror fans. Like, for example, I like horror. I do. I get scared easily. I have nightmares. I got nightmares from, I'm not kidding. I got nightmares from watching, The Woman in Black, of all movies, that came out a year or two ago. It scared me. I jumped and I was like, ugh, I got kind of scared. I'm not kidding. I've just always been easily frightened and jumped and stuff. I just lost my train of thought. But I don't like the feeling of being scared. I don't like horror in the sense that the scariness. I like horror as in like Silent Hill really fascinates me. Dead Space 2, the whole insanity thing and whether or not it's real or not, that fascinates me, to be honest. It makes me wonder. Alan Wake. Oh my gosh, I adore Alan Wake because it's the kind of video game psychological thriller I've always wanted. I've always been a fan of Stephen King. It's Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft. And I've always wanted a game like that, and that is the game. Alan Wake is the game. American Nightmare, not so much. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek in the sense, but it's still great. But it's just so good. I don't know what he learned, but whatever. But I met this one guy in a Sam Goody once. His friend, my friend and he were talking because I was looking around movies and stuff, and they were talking about horror and Walking Dead. I have yet to really get into The Walking Dead, but they were talking, and I came up to them and he's like, "What do you like?" He's like, "Do you like horror?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like it." He's like, "What kind?" I'm like, "I'm not really into like torture porn, which is like the Saw movies. I'm like, I'm more into like Stephen King-y kind of, psychological things like messing with the mind. Black Swan comes to mind. I'd even say like The Great Gatsby in my opinion, because it's kind of psychologically warped. Movies like that. The Broken is a good movie, sort of. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, kind of. Misery is good. The Telltale Heart, things like that. And he's like, "Oh, you can't call yourself a fan of horror because you don't like all horror." And I'm like, he started hammering me, and I literally couldn't say anything because I'm not good at arguing. When someone like keeps like pushing and stuff, I kind of I don't say I shut down, but I just don't really say anything. I'm like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm right, you're wrong, because if you're not a fan of all horror, you can't call yourself a fan of horror." No, not true. It's like the same thing with Final Fantasy. I'm a fan of fantasy, but the whole Skyrim and Oblivion fantasy, I can't get into. It's like Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna say this now. I love The Hobbit. I love the book. Movie, I haven't seen it yet. I really like the book. I shouldn't say love it. I enjoyed it. When I read it in 8th grade for the first time, I was like, this is really cool. I like this. Lord of the Rings itself, no. I could not get into it. But yeah,